somewhere between scheduling my daughter's C-section delivery so that I could make the bar exam, being denied a nursing accommodation during the bar exam, and expressing breast milk into a bathroom toilet in Atlantic City on my lunch break, to learning to tiptoe the societal tightrope of expectations and personal guilt, of managing motherhood and a corporate career, I realized something that many working mothers often hit like a brick wall. As a society, we're involuntarily playing an unfair game. And when I say we, I mean all of us. What if I told you that how you describe an issue reflects how you perceive it? Let me show you. Let's play a quick word association game. Don't be shy. I want you to shout out the first word you think of when I say a word you think it's associated with. Ready? Here we go. Peanut butter and? Yeah. Work from? Stay at home? Ooh. Isn't it interesting that when picturing a stay-at-home parent, many of us pictured a mother? If you did so, you're certainly not alone. There's no judgments here. According to the National Women's Law Center, since February of 2020, the United States lost more than 5.4 million women from its workforce. During the pandemic, as schools closed, it was women to stay home and be caretakers and educators at the cost of their careers and our national GDP. And what about the daddies and zaddies out there, fellas? Perceiving domestic work as women's work is not only harmful to the family structure and stability, but is becoming far less accurate in today's society. Families just don't look the way they did 50 years ago. Sorry. According to sociologist Arlene Kaplan-Daniels, since 1986, we've come up with a word for this perception. It's called invisible work. Invisible work is work that you don't earn a salary or compensation for, aka housework or child caring or work around the home. Work that stay-at-home mothers and women characteristically did. Work that has kept our society sustained for decades, even as more women join the workforce and now outnumber their male counterparts in college classrooms. But as more women join the workforce, now more than ever actually, invisible work never became visible. And Congress has yet to recognize its incontrovertible value to American society and economy. And this devaluation is hurting men just as much. These are my dear friends on the left, Marina and Roman and their family. They're a married couple living in Effort, Pennsylvania with 2 daughters, and I've been a family friend of theirs for 19 years now. They're pretty much stuck with me. My best friend's in the middle holding their daughter, and my own daughter is in the middle with her best friend. Roman is one of 2.2 million stay-at-home dads, according to the Pew Research Center, while Marina is part of the cohort of 41% of mothers who are the primary or sole breadwinners for their families, according to the US Department of Labor. And yet, Roman often tells me about how he's spoken to differently or treated differently than fathers who work outside the home. Come on, don't look so surprised. We've all seen it. The movies and skits that are satirically written about stay-at-home dads and house husbands, where men are either feminized or emasculated for the fact that they're homemakers. This perception not only hurts the family structure and outlook on men's health, but makes it even harder for women to advocate for the child care subsidies their counterparts enjoy all over the world. While inflation has been speeding up, the general expectation of women to be wives and mothers and little else has remained painfully stagnant. Indeed, in many places, like Pennsylvania, for example, a senior corporate executive who happens to be working away from her child and is her mother can be openly accused of abandoning her in family court, while a father maintaining minimal parental duties, who indeed abandons his career and financial obligations, can be classified as wholesome because he parents. That word game that we just played is one of the most expensive word games American society has been playing for decades. The general perception that child rearing and caretaking is solely a woman's job, and that such domestic work has no inherent value or cost, is in fact costing us to the tune of about $1.6 trillion. To my audience at home, do not adjust your screens or your volume. Y'all heard me correctly. According to Bloomberg, lowering costs to American households and making childcare affordable so that both parents can participate in the workforce would increase our GDP by $1.6 trillion by 2028. Yeah. To my investors, that's what I call a yielding investment. And the rest of the world has already hopped on the money train. So grab your passports, everybody. We're going on a trip around the globe. I borrowed this one from my kid, Sarah Rose. Everybody say, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. She's going to flip out. As it turns out, per the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the United States spends the absolute least amount of dollars on early childhood care in the developed world. Yeah, we're dead last. So let's take a look at Norway, shall we? Where are we at here? Oh, right here. Perfect. Norway spends $29,726 per child, the most in the developed world. Neighboring Sweden spends $18,010 per child. Just below here in Germany, they're spending $565 per child. Over in Spain, $9,084 per child. Flip around to Israel, where my paternal family is from, and they spend $3,327 per child. After subsidizing your delivery and sending you home with a congratulatory stipend and your new baby, of course. Mazal tov! Now, to my favorite finance faces and aces in the room, I know what you're thinking. I've heard it before. Nicole, who's going to pay for these subsidies? All these countries have higher tax rates and lower populations. It's a great idea in theory, but it's an expense we can't afford. Your frugalness appeals to my little heart. But here's where I invite you all to collectively get creative with me. Now, before I make my empirical arguments, let's run the numbers here as painlessly as we can, okay? Every year we spend $10,000 per family, per child, age 0 to 5, on early childhood care and development. According to the US Department of Health and Human Services, affordable child care should not exceed 7% of family income. Right. That's not true for about half of US families who are spending on average 29% on a two-income household and up to 52% on a single-parent household. These figures get even more dramatic when you factor in other demographics, like location, like where I'm from, in Brooklyn, expensive. And other things, like single moms who are Black or Latina, like every single mom in my family was. Hey, Ma. Hi, Titi. Think about how having the support that other families enjoy around the world could have helped your family. How many of us grew up with single parents? I know I did. Yeah. How many of us remember how exhausting it was? To juggle a newborn, you had to rush back into daycare so you could rush back into work because paid maternity leave is a unicorn in this country. What can we do to make sure that our country is progressing in step with the rest of the developed world? While my general hope is that you'll all go home and talk about these things with your friends and families and come up with some really awesome solutions, I give you 3 baby steps to start with. First, changes to our tax code. Second, enhancements to our employee benefits offerings. And third, corporate incentives. For example, let's look at the charitable contribution deduction. I'm not going to bore you with the law or the text. Not that kind of lawyer. The charitable contribution deduction is an annual tax credit that applies to individuals or corporations for the market value of gifts that they make to nonprofit organizations. These could be anything: educational, political, literary, or even organizations that work to prevent cruelty to children or animals. Sounds altruistic, right? But it's got 4 basic conditions. First, It applies to contributions not exceeding 50% of the donor's income. Second, it's only available to those who are itemizing those deductions. Third, the value of the deduction is the market value of the gift, not necessarily what you spent on it. And last, it's based on the donor's tax rate. And that's the most important thing, because that means that a different deduction can apply to different people or organizations for the same gift. That also means then there's wiggle room in this part of the tax code for offsets that won't throw off political equilibrium. After all, this is not a political discussion, promise. It's an economic discussion. Aside from the tax code, a thorough analysis would reveal there are plenty of other places for offsets that won't compromise our big-ticket items, like education or public safety. Thinking of our corporations, some of them, like places where I work, are getting more creative in how they help families lead more fulfilling lives and become productive employees. For example, where I currently work, not only are we entitled to work full-time from home, but we can partake in child care credits. Similarly to other corporations that subsidize child care, mine kind of took it a step further and allows you to use those credits on things you deem necessary to fit your family. That can be after school, tutoring, or lessons, or even summer camp. So given that some of these corporations are recognizing the need to empower their employees to have a work life and a family life, why not incentivize them? Give them tax subsidies or other incentives for doing so. Remember that wiggle room we just found in the tax code? We can start wiggling it in the right direction. Collectively, I want you all to tell the IRS, I dip, you dip, we dip, right? Oh, it's all right, now you guys know. In order to do this realistically, though, we're going to have to be a bit more demanding of our lawmakers. Speaking of our lawmakers, has anybody noticed anything a bit unbalanced about them? Like, for example, that women comprise less than 30% of our nation's governmental leadership? Would anyone care to venture a guess at how many working mothers we actually have in Congress? By a show of hands, without looking at the big numbers on the screen. How many of you thought that number of working moms with children under 18 at home in Congress was more than a quarter of Congress? And be honest, I'm watching. How many of you thought it was less? Smart crowd. Surprise, that number's 23. 23 out of 535. And that's a record number, by the way. It's no wonder childcare and paid maternity leave haven't been prioritized. The populations that they continue to affect the most are the least represented. So how you vote, campaign, lobby, donate, run, ultimately dictates where the family structure is headed. And I urge you, friends, to do that with intention and purpose. Involve yourselves in your local politics and policy making the way we used to get involved in the local office chatter. Be mindful of how you perceive that early leave request from someone who's got to go and run to get their sick kid from daycare. Broaden your understanding of the fact that investing in the working mother is indeed advancing American society. Grasp the notion that having a career and having children is not a Sophie's choice. Master that understanding, and más alto y felicidades, you have officially surpassed Congress and a slew of county family court judges. So, I leave you with the words of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson left to her daughters during her confirmation hearing, because her words resonated with me and so many other struggling working mothers I know who are desperately trying to have it all. And I couldn't have said them any better to my own little girl. And baby girl, I hope you're watching. And to my captive audience here tonight, so too do these words apply. I know it has not been easy, as I have tried to juggle the challenges of navigating my career and motherhood. And I fully admit that I didn't always get the balance right. But I hope that you have seen that with hard work, determination, and love, it can be done. I am so looking forward to seeing what each of you chooses to do with your amazing lives in this incredible country. I love you so much.